What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to 2020 Vision Podcast. I am your host, comedian Visionary Speaks, and we just had a few technical difficulties, but we are back. And we're talking about transitions of all things, and I just had to transition to a whole different platform of recording. But it's all good. We just gonna keep it moving. So let's just start over and talk about today's topic, which is transitioning through different phases of life. So where we started was just talking about how 2020 has been a series of transitioning for a lot of people. It's just that space where you can think about where you are in your life and where you want to be, and understanding that transition is a part of that process. And transition can look differently for different people. Some people are considering career transitions, some people are considering relationship transitions, some people are considering mental transitions, and really changing the way they think about things. And even sometimes friendship transitions and different things that you can just transition in and out of. So what I think about transitioning is that everything has a space in your life and everything has its place in your life. So the way I think about life is there's the beginning, and in the beginning it's like opening a book. Your birth is like the start to your book. And once you open that book, you start to fill the pages with your actions and your day-to-day lives and the things that you do and the things that you go through. And they fill those pages of your book. And at some point in your book, you're going to go to a new chapter. And that new chapter is usually a transition, and transition into something new that you're doing, something new that you are pursuing. And as you get older, sometimes transitioning isn't always easy. So, as a kid, we kind of go through our chapters quickly. You go from being a baby to being a toddler to being in high school, Jesus, to going through the phases of school, elementary, middle, high school, and things like that. And then you graduate on, and then those chapters become a little more difficult to navigate, because then you got to make some real adult decisions and really think about what that next chapter is going to look like and how it's going to affect you. So when transitioning, sometimes it just takes a lot of effort and a lot of strength to get to that next level, to get to that next chapter. And that's what we're here to talk about, is how do you get to that next level? How do you get to that next chapter of transitioning without losing yourself, and also without fear? Because when you think about going through a new phase of your life, a lot of times it's scary. There's a lot of fear that comes with transitioning, because the purpose of that point in your life was just a consistency. There is a comfortability there that sometimes is difficult to give up. Being comfortable and being in that space and knowing what's going to happen next, even if you don't like what happens next, even if you don't really love where you're at in your life or your career or your relationship, you know it very well, and you get used to it and you get comfortable with it. And even in those spaces where you don't feel comfortable, it's sometimes easier to stay there than it is to move forward. So in that way, you have to find that strength to transition to the next stage of your life. When it comes to relationships, we get very comfortable. We find somebody who likes us enough to stay with us for a long period of time, and we just stay in that shit for a long period of time if we can. And sometimes that it has run its course and the transition is starting to take its toll. At least the idea of the transition is taking its toll on your mind and your thoughts, and you're thinking, maybe this is it. But what does this is it mean? Does that mean leaving behind something that you invested so much time and effort into? What does this is it mean as far as your housing situation, your family situation, your financial situation? What does that look like for this is it in a relationship? And that transition can become difficult just because of all the parameters that is a part of it. But once you start feeling that tug that says, this ain't it, you know, that tug doesn't happen for no reason. You know, it's something that is pushing you and pulling you to want more for yourself and to not settle. And it can be difficult to let go. And then even times where you feel like it would be embarrassing to leave, or it would be embarrassing for people to know that you failed in that situation. You know, it is, what is more important, your pride and your embarrassment, or your happiness? And that's where transition has to have purpose and strength behind everything that you do, because it can pursue itself in a way that will give you the strength to leave, or it can kind of shelter you down to feel like you need to stay. So when it comes to relationship transitions, you know when it's that time. You know when it's played its course. But sometimes listening to that feeling is not always the easiest thing to do. And that's where you have to be in a state of faithfulness and able to tell yourself it's okay to be uncomfortable and moving forward. And it's okay to not understand what's going to happen next. It's okay to not completely have control over the forecast of your future, and just step out on faith and understand that if you're having doubts or any feelings, that they're there for a reason, and don't ignore them, because they're not going to go away. They're just going to come back in different forms and different energies, and you can't fully give yourself to somebody else if you're not happy. You can't be there for somebody else if you're not happy. If you're not within whole in yourself, you can't give part of yourself to somebody else. So you have to be understanding that there's a point in time when transition just makes sense. It's the only answer to being able to be a better person for yourself and others. So when you're transitioning through relationships, you have to give yourself time to grieve that relationship. If it meant that much to you, grieve that relationship. Be at peace with whatever you're feeling about that relationship. Find both the good and the bad, able to grow from it. Because if you didn't learn anything in any past relationships, then you're really not growing at all. You're not really taking any of the lessons that you could have learned in those situations to a new situation. And you probably will deal with the same shit that you was dealing with in the last relationship, because you keep carrying that stuff on and you're not paying attention to your own rituals, to your own it's kind of like you keep doing the same thing expecting a different result, and we all know that means insanity. So transitioning into something new means being uncomfortable and being okay with that uncomfortability, especially when it comes to ending relationships. It's being comfortable with being alone and being by yourself, and having that space. I feel like a lot of us have had a lot of time to get to know ourselves in quarantine, and to be alone for a while. And for some people, that has done wonders in their lives. But other people, they struggled, you know, because there are the deep depths of their selves that they don't really like, and it's starting to show, it's starting to spill. And that need to be around other people, that need to be surrounded by the public, that need to be blocked out, you know, whether it be just being in a social environment, drinking, or, you know, whatever you do to get by the days, is starting to play out in the way that you are acting. And you have to address those things, because they will spill over, and they have spilled over. So just be honest with yourself as you're transitioning to a phase, because you cannot transition until you say what needs to be said to yourself and be honest. if you're transitioning into a new relationship, you have to realize the baggage you bring and the things that you and the role that you played in your previous relationships. Do not deny yourself the truth that you have played a role in the good things in your relationships in the past and the bad things in your relationship. If you can't be honest with yourself, then you can't take honesty into another situation. And that's how things get repeated. And that's how things become a trend in your next relationship. So be honest. If you're going into a new relationship, try to go in with a new mind, a new way of thinking, be open-minded and not closed-minded, but also be truthful with yourself about who you are and what you want and what you expect. And don't settle and don't allow bullshit in your life. If you are being honest with yourself, what you want, then you can relay that to that person. Come in with honesty, leave out with honesty. And that's how you can transition peacefully into your next chapter. When it comes to work and careers, it could be the hardest thing because that's our staple, that's our livelihoods, is our jobs. And we tend to hold on to things. You know, as millennials, we're kind of a little more flexible with that. We don't always have to have the job stability more than we have our happiness. And sometimes we'll take our happiness over the job stability. But in the same token, we don't want to not be able to pay our bills, and we don't want to not be able to be independent and have things for ourselves. So you have to realize that when you're transitioning or feeling that feeling that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, that's not something you should ignore, you know. And if anything, quarantine has taught us that life is too short to be dealing with anything that is not gonna, you know, make you happy, or dealing with anything that's not gonna, that actually adds to your life, whether that be a relationship, a job, or a friendship, or anything that you're dealing with that you don't need to deal with, that's not gonna amplify your life. You need to get it up out your life. And if it's stressful, please know that stress is the killer. Stress can kill you. So if you're not happy with your job, if it makes you stressed out, if it makes you feel just drained at the end of the day, then start taking steps to transition. Start taking steps to move forward. Start taking steps that will progress you in a way that you can be a better employee for somebody else, or a better entrepreneur for yourself, if that's where you're going. Don't allow other people to put pressure on you to be successful. It is your job to put pressure on you to be successful. And I know we've seen all these posts out here since quarantine started. If you're not starting a business during quarantine, or doing all this other stuff during quarantine, if you're not getting your hustle on and doing all this other stuff during quarantine, then you wasting your time. That's just not true. I mean, sometimes it just takes a refreshed mind, a finding of peace that makes them all the more productive in your life. So don't listen to what everybody else is doing. Don't mark your steps off somebody else's steps, because they're not taking the same road. And honestly, sometimes they're not being truthful about what they did or what they're doing. A lot of people, like, I hate the social media era. Like, y'all see me on here doing podcasts and stuff like that, and I love coming to the people. I love talking to the people, but I hate social media. Like, honestly, it's just that whole fake reality of what I have and look at me and all that. That's really not my thing. I really don't like it. It's not my favorite part of any of this journey. But I know that a part of this new world and the way that we conduct ourselves, social media is a part of it. So I have to play my role in that, but I'm going to play it my way. And I'm going to say what I want to say in the midst of it. And whoever is here to listen, whether it be 5 people or 10,000 people, I don't give a damn. You know, who is going to reach us, who is going to reach. And I believe that. But when it comes to transitioning into a new phase of a new career, it takes patience. And believe me, it's a labor of love, because I'm not always patient. I'm always thinking, like, what can I do to move this forward? What can I do to change the chapter? Can I get the new page? Lord Jesus, please save it. What do I do? But it's not up to me to turn that page once I've done everything that I can do. It's just a waiting game sometimes. And I just remember when I graduated from my master's and I had the degree and I started applying to jobs, and I'm like, I'm big boss out here. I got a master's degree. I did all the work, honey. I got the papers to show for it. And I would start applying to places and I ain't hear back from nobody. And I'm like, do they know who they're not responding to? Like, it's me. And that's all delusion, because who am I to them? Nobody. So it's just that idea, whatever you think you are, or whoever you think you are, put that to the side. Humble yourself, humble your situation, because it's a patient waiting game when you're trying something new. Especially when you're an entrepreneur, you're left up to the masses because you need somebody to buy your product. And when you're a employee, you need somebody to hire you. So it's just a matter of being patient, be diligent, do what you can, and what you can't, let it go. And allow yourself to just be comfortable in that uncomfortable space of waiting. And that's where I am right now. I know I'm great. I know what I have to offer is great. I know this podcast is amazing. I know what I'm saying is going to touch and reach a lot of people. Has it? No, not yet. I could be talking to nobody right now and I don't care. It's just a matter of putting the content out, allowing it to reach who it reaches. And you know what? If it's meant to be, it'll reach the right person. And if it doesn't, then it wasn't meant to be. But for right now, it's all about planting your seeds. Plant your seeds, allow them to grow. And the people it reaches are the people who needs to be reached. And the people it doesn't don't matter at this point, because you don't know them. You don't know who you don't reach. You don't know who is affected all the way, always by something you've done. Does that mean that what you did is invalid? Absolutely not. Just means right now, that's not who it needs to be reaching. So you have to be patient in that process. Being in this new career field for me of being a comedian and doing all of these things to try to progress my career in that way, especially during the pandemic, is a labor of love. And it takes a lot of patience. And it's not easy sometimes. Sometimes it's just waiting and putting things out and seeing who receives it. And I can say for a fact, I'm not always good with that because, for the most part, I'm not the person that needs the clout, the appreciation, the love. It's not who I am, but I know Visionary Speaks does, so Visionary Speaks has to get some form of following and things like that just to be able to progress the career and of my comedy. I really just want to reach people and make people feel good and happy. But that takes time and effort and, consistency and developing. I haven't paid all my dues yet to be, so eager for people to get what I'm giving. One day I'll get to that point, but right now I'm not. And it's uncomfortable. But it's a part of the process that I'm understanding and I'm learning to cope with. So that part of transitioning, when you're transitioning into a new career, you have to be patient. You have to be diligent. You have to be consistent. You have to be aware of your situation when you're in it. You have to understand that things don't happen the way you want them to happen. Things don't happen as quickly as you want it to happen. Believe me, if that was the case, I would have been moved forward with a lot of things that I've been putting in place. But you know what? They happen when they're supposed to happen. And that's what life is about. Because sometimes if things would have happened the way you wanted it to happen, it would have been a disaster. Because it would have happened too quickly. Maybe you didn't learn the lesson that you need to learn to be able to do it properly. Because sometimes we got to go through some shit in order to do it correctly. In order to do things properly, sometimes you have to have some struggles. To be a better person, to be able to mentor more people, you have to have been through some shit. And some of y'all just ain't been through enough stuff, to be able to tell the story, to be able to really appreciate what success brings. So you have to be comfortable with the fact that maybe you're not ready. And I know that that's scary, but it's also very relieving, to be in that space. But as you transition, just know your worth, know who you are, know why you are, understand your place and your purpose in every part of your page. And make sure it's your words, make sure it's your experiences, and that you're not living for someone else. Because a lot of people go through things and they are living for someone else. They are experiencing things for somebody else, to make someone else happy. And it ends up being less about them and more about the other person. And it's your story, you know. It's about you. It's about who you are. So just be yourself, be authentic. Like, that is the biggest amount of advice that I've gotten since doing comedy, is people just say, just be yourself. You know, everything else will fall into place if you're just yourself, and yourself is good enough. So just be yourself and allow whatever you have to offer to be received by whomever is intended to receive it. Another part of transitioning is that idea of loss. When you lose something that you had previously, that you transition to a new phase, and you lost something. As a counselor, I've always heard that when people transition, especially people who have been addicted to things like drugs, anything that can become addictive, because even relationships can be addictive. There's a space and time that you give into that situation that you have to be aware of, because you have to understand that that's considered a loss or a death or a mourning. So once you lose that, you need to add things in to fill that time, because whatever space you put towards that relationship, that job, you have to fill that space with something new. Because if you don't, it can leave a longing, it can leave a wanting that you don't always have the ability to control. And you need to be able to find newness in that old space. So just be able to try new things, explore. Don't be afraid to take a chance or a risk, because you're uncharted territory anyway. You're doing things that you've never done anyway. So explore that land vigorously and figure out what you like, figure out what you don't like, and find yourself somewhere in the middle, and allow that new experience to help scope what will be your new chapter, and transition in that way. But transitioning, like I said, it's one of the hardest things that you can do, because it's a letting go of the old and kind of blindly walking into something new. And I know that is difficult, but it is not without its rewards. A lot of times when you hear stories about people and they are successful, they talk about times where they were uncomfortable, talk about times where they had very difficult decisions to make. If I would have stayed at this job, I would have never got here. Or, there was times where I didn't have anything. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a place to live. I didn't have all these resources. Here we are sitting here waiting for everything to line up. A lot of times we don't move until all of our ducks are in a row. But when are our ducks ever in a row? Like, when is it the right time to do anything? And the answer is, it's never the right time. It's never the optimal time to do anything new or out of the ordinary, because everything will always be happening whether you like it or not, life happens around you. So it's never really the right time to make a transition. Just do it. When you feel it in your spirit and you know that there's something that you want to do and that you're really compelled to do something, that's the right time. That's the right time. And you may not have all your ducks in a row. It may not always be the perfect situation to move forward. You may not have money. You may not have a house to go through. You may not have all the things that you want. You have all the money that you want, but you are ready and you're willing. And that's what makes it right. That's what makes the timing right. So you have to get out of your own way and stop waiting for things to be perfect for you to transition on to something new. Because that transition can make it perfect. That new job can make it perfect. That new relationship can make it perfect. But you sitting here waiting for everything else to work out, you wasting your time and you're going to miss your opportunities because you're waiting for things to be perfect. Things will never be perfect, according to life standards, but they can be perfect according to your standards. They can be perfect according to what you want to do. And you have to be ready and willing to take the chance of them not being as perfect as you want. Sometimes your transition to the next thing could be a failure. And that's very real. But that doesn't mean it's not worth exploring. That failure could lead to a successful situation. That failure could lead to you moving on to something greater. That failure could lead to a new state of mind that'll get you to that next place. Be okay with failure. Be okay with not getting things the way you want it. Be okay with things falling short as long as you don't stay there. And as long as you grow from them and learn from them, then they're not a failure. They're not something that you should be ashamed of, because growth has never been anything that you should be ashamed of. So be prepared for transitioning. Be prepared for what's to come. Be prepared to make your next steps, and don't be afraid of failing along the way. You may go from one job to another job. I mean, I know a lot of people on here, you probably had 10, 15 different jobs, but just continue to explore, continue to be diligent, continue to work on your craft, and don't be afraid to stay, to try something new, because you should be more afraid to stay where you're at if you're unhappy. That should be more fearful than you actually moving forward and you actually finding something new and you actually moving forward. People are too afraid to move forward because they're afraid of failure. Like, how crazy is that? How do you get anything if you don't fail? You have to be ready to transition. You have to be ready to not know what to do next. It's so uncomfortable. It's so uncomfortable, but in that uncomfortable space can brew so much beauty, so much creativity. People are afraid to be uncomfortable. Like, life is hella uncomfortable. I don't know if y'all been in it for this quarantine period, but this was not planned. I didn't plan this shit. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be locked into my house for months on end. I didn't want to have to not be able to go to the events, and I had, hell, my anniversary next month. I was supposed to be in the Bahamas. Am I going? Absolutely not. But had this not happened, I would have never been a comedian. Had this quarantine not happened, I would have been so uncomfortable in my life that it made me want more. It made me think about my life a little differently. It made me think, maybe I need to do better. Or if this was even in the worst sense, if this was to kill me, with this corona thing, did I live my life to the fullest? Am I happy with where I left off? And if you are not, then you got to do something about that. You can't be so in thinking that things will change on their own, and they won't. You don't go through your pages of life without putting some action behind them sentences. If you're not putting action behind your actual wants and needs and words, you just talking. And lip service don't get you nowhere in this life. Lip service won't get you to that next level. So it's people who will talk about what they want and talk about it till they're blue in the face. I got these goals. I got these dreams. It's like a car. that ain't got no damn gas. You know, they'll just talk all day. They'll talk your ear off about what they want to do. But you ask them, okay, what have you done to start that? And they ain't got a damn thing to say. I plan to. Oh, next month I will. You know, I've been trying to do. No, that's not an action. That's a thought. You are thinking about what you want to do and you're not doing it. So if you have that feeling in your stomach that says something needs to change, then you have to listen. That's your first action, is to listen. Your second action is to actually put a plan in place. And the third is to transition to that plan. So this is my transitionary phase. In the pursuit of happiness, this is my running phase. You know, I'm running to the next thing. But you can't do that without action, and you can't do that with fear. You know, because fear is what keeps us in the same position. And one thing that I'm scared of is to be in the same position next year. You know, a lot of people say new year, new me, and it's all bullshit because it's the same you every year. But has your mentality shifted from last year? That's a newness. Has your ability to move forward shifted? You know, if you're still feeling those same negative feelings about somebody that's in your life right now, what are you doing? What are you doing with your time? Because I know people who hold on to people, toxic people in their lives, family and friends, just hold on to people because they don't want to be alone. And you have to address those feelings, because being alone is important for change, because that's important to get to know yourself again. And please know that yourself changes all the time. So who am I today? It's not going to be the same as who I am tomorrow, because something's going to happen from now to then that it's going to change me slightly. Sometimes it changes you dramatically. So you have to check in and tune in to yourself through every transition, through every chapter. You got to tune into yourself and check in and say, who am I right now? You know, I've been in situations where I'm in a situation and I say, who am I right now? Am I being a bitch right now? Am I being mean right now? Am I being a good person right now? Because that's how you know that you're being honest with yourself. And if you're not doing that at every phase of your life, you're not being honest with yourself, baby. If you're going to sit here and say that things are going the way you want, then don't complain. Don't complain. Say thank you, Jesus, and move about your business. But don't sit here and say that everything is okay and you're still complaining. You're still unhappy. You still don't have the things that you want, the things that you need, and you're still struggling with yourself. That's not honest. So transition the way you're thinking, because sometimes the biggest transition you can make is a mental one. Some of y'all need to make some mental transitions, okay? Because the way that you're thinking keeps you from making some physical transitions that can make you some financial transactions, that can make you transition into something better in your life. Your mind ain't ready. Your mind ain't ready to transition. You would like to transition. You would like to have a new job. You would like to have a new relationship. You would like to have new friendships. You would like to have new opportunities, but your mind ain't transitioned. You still think the way you used to think. You still look at things the way you used to look at them. And how do you expect that that's going to reap any new benefit if it never did before? If you always have the same situations, and I hear those people all the time, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why I can't get a man. I don't know why I can't keep a man. I don't know why I always run into these dead ass jobs. You know, I should not be working a 9 to 5. I'm an entrepreneur and all this shit. You still act like a 9 to 5er. You still act like somebody's ex-girlfriend. You're nobody's wife. You're not in the mentality to be somebody's wife. You still somebody's ex-girlfriend, and you're still acting like somebody's side chick, and you're still acting like you're not worth it, you're not worthy. That's your fault, because you haven't shifted your mentality. You haven't checked into yourself to say, who am I at this point in time? After every ended situation, you should check back in and say, what did I do there? That was my bad. Okay, what can I do to improve? Not every situation that you come out is a bad situation, but you got to check back in. You got to check back in. When they play basketball, after they make the shot, they go back to the line and they check the ball back in. You got to check the ball back in and check yourself at the door and make sure that whatever you're bringing into your next situation isn't toxic, because a lot of you are toxic and you don't want to say it. I can be toxic sometimes, but I'm aware of it. I'm aware of when I'm not presenting my best self. We all can. And we have to be aware of it. You have to tune in enough to say, that ain't right. You have to know yourself enough to say, nah, girl, you wrong. Nah, dude, that was your bad. When you end a situation, you have to check in with yourself to be able to see what you did well and what you did wrong. It's your annual review, and you need to do it with yourself every year. If you don't do it, you are not bringing your best self to the plate. You are not bringing your best self to the game, honey. You can't bring your old shit to the game, new game. It's just not gonna work. They're gonna bench you, and life can bench you. You know how you can get benched in life? When you stay in the same situation over and over again. People wonder why they stay in the same chapter for years and years and years. You in that same chapter. Ain't turned a doggone page. You keep writing the same thing over and over again. I'm a do better. I'm do better. I'm gonna try better. I'm gonna do that. No, you on the same page. Same page. You ain't turned the page because you have not realized what you needed to learn from this chapter. So you keep experiencing it over and over again. It's like a Groundhog Day. You wake up and experience the same bullshit. You have done nothing to change your situation. You have done nothing to improve yourself, but you blame others. Oh, my boss ain't giving me that promotion. That's why I ain't got it. Or he just hasn't proposed to me. That's why I'm not a wife. Or, anything in your life that you want to transition to something new, stop blaming other people and start taking control of your transitions. Because that's the only way that you'll get to the next level. If you still blaming other people for being in the same place, then you the fool. You're to blame. Because if you blame others, then you're giving them the power to change it. So you're waiting on somebody else to change your situation. And that means you're going to be waiting. Because if you wait on people to do what they're supposed to do or do something to help you in your life, believe me, baby, you will be waiting. Like I used to wait on people to do for me what I would do for them, because I'm a giver. I'm a giver. I give my all to people. I'll give you my last. I'll give you the shot back if you really needed it. And when it would come to times where I needed people and it'd be like waiting for the damn, sun to shine in a rainstorm. You're just waiting for people to be there for you. And you can't do that because that's giving them the power. Your ability to give is your blessing to them. Nobody owes you anything back for your ability to give. It's your ability to give is a blessing in itself because you were able to do it, right? That's the blessing. You were able to give something to somebody. Now, whether they give it back to you, that's extra. They don't owe you nothing, but your ability to give is the blessing. But sometimes people forget that. They forget that it's a beauty just being able to do for somebody else and expect nothing in return. But we want people to be who we are to them because we feel like we're good people. But the thing about it is that people will never be the person that you want them to be to you. Because your expectations of others is maybe too high, or because you're imposing things on them that they don't already have. They can't be you. Not everybody can be you to you because you are the only you that is you. That sounds crazy, but it is what it is. Only you can be yourself to someone else, and you have to allow people to be whoever they are to you. Now, whether you accept bullshit in your life, that's different. But sometimes people accept bullshit in their life and they don't have to. But you can be whoever you want to people. Just don't expect them to be the same person back to you. Do it freely. What do they say in church? Be a cheerful giver. Be a cheerful giver. And don't expect nothing in return, because people let you down when you start to get to that point. And when you start to give other people the power to control your happiness, that's where you lose. So stop giving people that power. They will not transition you forward. Only you can transition you forward. Only you can get you to that next chapter. You have to start considering yourself. And yes, it can be selfish at times. And there's nothing wrong with being selfish. We have to take down the stigma of selfishness. Selfishness ain't nothing but thinking of yourself first. And what's so bad about that? Sometimes we put people ahead of ourselves all the time, and we think of ourselves last. But to put yourself first is to make yourself happy so you can be there for somebody else. So you can be that person and that cheerful giver that we all want to be. So you got to put yourself first. You have to realize that you matter too. You actually matter most in the situation in your life. Whether it be you're married and you are a mother or whatever the case may be, you still matter most in that situation, because if you're not happy, nobody else is. So take the time and invest in yourself. Invest in your transition. Invest in your chapters. Sometimes it'll reap the benefits that you want quickly, and sometimes it's going to take time. And to be honest, most great things take time. They take time. They take effort. They take hardship. They take just a whole bunch of stuff that some people ain't willing to give. They want to reap the benefit, though. They want to see what they can get out of it. They want to be rich. They want to be wealthy. They want to be married. They want to be in good friendships, and they want to travel the world and do all these great things, but they're not willing to do nothing for it. And that's the fallacy of dreams. We all can dream. Everybody wakes up from a dream. We all have things that we've dreamed about. We've all had hopes and goals. We've all had all of these things that we wanted to do. The first thing they ask you when you were a kid is, what do you want to be when you grow up? What is your dream? And most of us haven't accomplished those dreams. That's the idea, is that not everybody's going to make it in this world to their dream. But what is the difference between those who do and those who don't? And that's the real question. What's the difference between you and the people who are doing the things that you want to do in life, or at least appearing to? Because as we all know, everything is not as it seems in the social media era. But what did they do that makes them so different? And sometimes it is luck. Sometimes people just find out of luck and they're able, or I wouldn't even say luck, because luck is just, it's a cop-out way of saying things. Things don't happen by luck, but I believe in divine intervention in life, and I believe that things happen for a reason. But you have to think about, have you done everything that you can do, to push that transition forward? And if you ask for it and you say it plain and you say, this is what I want to do, have you been listening? Have you been looking out for the signs? I got multiple signs before I started in comedy. I asked for a response. I asked for what am I supposed to do next? And I heard an answer and I listened. And I started to move. There are still things that I hear daily that I don't do. I got multiple videos that I have to edit. But they take time. Editing is a bitch. If you are a content provider, if you're in anything with social media, you know that editing is a heavy-handed hoe, and it's a trial and error, and it takes a lot of energy and time to edit all that videos. Do I know that in order to take off my career and to be a better social media brand for my comedy, I gotta post daily? Do I post daily? Hell no, because that shit is taxing. It takes a lot of time to post daily. One, I got a regular ass job, so I don't always have time to post every single day. And two, I don't like having to do that. You know, I wish I could be in the days of old where you just go to the comedy clubs and you show what you got and you can get on stage and just rock the mic and get off, and people, you know, get who you are by word of mouth, and you just travel and tour. And I miss those days because I would have loved those days. You know, I would have loved to be out here just touring, traveling, getting to know the people in person. But I didn't grow up in that, or at least I'm not coming up in comedy in that time. Now it's so many social media comics, and you have to have a following in order for people to want to pay you. They want to know how many people you reach, how many people follow you. And that part, I can't. You know, I can't love it, at least at this phase right now, because I'm not an attention whore. I'm sorry. I just don't care that much about who loves me. But I know that that's a part of the business that I'm getting into. And I have to transition while thinking to do better about that. But I'm on here. I try to post every Thursday, but it be late, technical difficulties as we had today. I try to put myself out here. I try to get my podcast on every Thursday at 7 o'clock EST to show consistency. Even if I can't post daily, I try to have my podcast done on Thursdays so that people can see it and know that it's coming. Eventually, I will be able to get out here and tour and transition to that phase. I can't wait for that phase because I want to hear the auto laughs. I want to get to know people. I want to see the different, you know, communities and stuff that I could impact with my comedy. But right now, I'm not there. So in this space, I have to adjust. And although it's not always easy, it's not always fun, it's worth the effort, because I feel like if I put this out here, you know, as they say, the internet is forever. So I could wake up one day and a video from, you know, months and months and months ago somehow comes back into play, and people are seeing the relevance of it, you know. So you have to plant the seeds. Even though I could be watching this video and no, or recording this video and nobody be watching. That doesn't mean nobody will ever watch it. That doesn't mean nobody will ever see it. So you do it because it could mean something to somebody someday. And you plant those seeds. And that's how you have to do a transition. You have to do it with a sense of hopefulness, and you have to do it with a sense of understanding that things don't move to the beat of your drum. They move to the beat of life's drum. So be prepared for that next stage. Transitioning is never easy. You know, it's a letting go of one phase to move forward to another. So if you're at a place of transition, and sometimes you're in pre-transition mode, that's contemplation. If you're watching this and you're at a place of contemplation, listen to yourself, be honest with yourself, make a plan, and do the work. That's all you have to do. Be okay with the silent spaces. Be okay with the small victories, because I have an issue with that too. Is sometimes giving myself that pat on the back, you know, and saying you did that. Like sometimes I'll in a situation and I'm automatically critiquing it. Like I did my special on my 30th birthday. I filmed a special, a comedy special from my backyard, and I had about 20 guests come and watch me, I did a full lip sync comedy set beforehand, and then I did a full hour of comedy. And the first thing I did when I hopped off stage was critique myself. Like, oh, I could have did this better, or damn, I didn't add this last part of my joke, and it didn't, or the audience was talking too much, or, I'm automatically critiquing myself. And it's just like, you have to stop and realize that you just did a fucking comedy special from your backyard in your first 3 months of comedy. So that's worth something, right? That's worth a clean pat on the back. And sometimes we can't give ourselves the pat on the back in the moment that we need. And we need pats on the back. So you have to be more, what can I say? You have to be more appreciative of yourself. You have to give yourself the pat on the back, because sometimes that pat on the back gets you to the next, the next success. Or sometimes that pat on the back can get you through the next hardship. So appreciate the small successes, because that shows that you're on the right path. So pat yourself on the back as you go. And I tell this even to like my clientele, just give yourself a list of things to do that day and try to be consistent. Try to do the things that you said you wanted to do that day and just check them off. They don't have to be large things. They can be small things. If your mind can't be clear because you got dishes in the sink, put on your list, let me clean those dishes today. If your mind can't be clear because you haven't done something that you've been wanting to do for a while. Like for me, I had a whole bunch of clothes in my hamper that I had not washed. And once I washed them, I had a whole bunch of clothes on my bed that I had not folded and put away. So now my room is just junked up with clean clothes that I had not put away. And it really took over my mind for a while. And then at one point it was just filing. I had a whole bunch of papers around that I wanted to do to get a filing cabinet and file them away, so I don't have to worry about where my paperwork for certain things, my bills and stuff. I want to organize them. And it was one of those to-dos that just kept racking my brain, and I needed to do. I still got one on my list, finishing my thank you notes for my wedding from last year. Jesus. That one is a labor of love. Like, I'm telling you, it's so difficult just because I want to handwrite them. I want to get them out, and the clock is ticking, honey, because my anniversary is next month, and I'm trying to get all my thank you notes from that wedding last year out by the anniversary, because they say you have a year of cushion, but I don't think that that's really what it's supposed to be. According to my mama, I'm absolutely off, but I'm working on it, So last weekend I bought a cabinet and I filed my shit. I took some time and I filed my paperwork, and that made me feel so relieved. I felt good knowing where everything was. I had a filing cabinet. And then after that, I watched Girlfriends and I folded my clothes and I put my clothes away. And now I have nothing to fold. Well, yes, I do. I just watched some new shit. So I got another list. It never ends. But I felt, for that one moment, I felt relieved. I felt good because I took something off my back. I took a weight off my shoulder, and that felt good. And you find your way. You find your way by taking small things off your shoulder, and you give yourself kudos for that. Give yourself some appreciation, and then you move on. You don't stay there too long. You go to the next task, and you give yourself appreciation for the next task. So just continue to make a mission to transition to that next phase. No matter what it is, just continue to do the work. If you do the work and you present to the world, the universe, or however you want to look at it, you start presenting that you want to transition. If you start doing things to move that transition forward, it will not be for naught. It will move you to a next level. Now, whether your transition ends up being exactly what you thought it was, that's a whole different podcast, for another day. But at least that whole element of moving forward and pushing yourself and trying new things, that's a part of the process, and that's the part that's going to get you to your next level. Do not be afraid of that. Be ready for that. Be at peace with whatever it is. You can't control everything, but you can control what you do and how you think about it. So as we come to the end of our talk about transitioning, I just want you to keep in mind that life is truly about the journey. It's not about the end. Even when you get to the end of your book, it'll all be about the memories and the things that you did to get there. When you get to the point where your book is coming to a close, you're not going to be worried about the stuff that you didn't do. You're going to think about all the things that you did do. So just do as much of what you want to do as possible and stop stressing over the things you haven't done yet. Just do what you can during this time and be thankful as you go. And I think that's the best way to transition on to new things. That's the best way to get to your next level, is just be thankful for the things that you have. Be thankful for the things that you're going to do, and be thankful before they even happen. When I wake up every day in the morning, I say, thank you, God, for what I have, and thank you for what's to come, because I know that this isn't where I end. So just be thankful, be ready, be prepared for the uncomfortable feelings that comes with transitioning to something new. And I am truly thankful for all of those who are tuning in right now. If you are tuning in, you are appreciated. Thank you, my co-visionaries, near and far, from right now into the future. I love you. I appreciate you guys, because eventually you're going to get me to that place that I need to be. So thank you to all my co-visionaries. Once again, this is the 2020 Vision Podcast. I am Comedian Visionary Speaks. Follow me on Facebook at Comedian Visionary Speaks. Also on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Like, subscribe, all that good jazz. Follow, do all the stuff that you need to do to make this a success, baby. Share this video I know people who need to hear this message. It's not just for one or two, three or a few. It's for all of us, because at every point we are transitioning into something new. So share this video. Even if you're not watching it live, share it after. Please comment. I do read my comments. I do respond to my comments. So go ahead and comment, and I hope that this helps somebody get to their next transition and chapter in their life. And I appreciate everybody who stuck in. I will be right back here next Thursday at 7 o'clock, and we'll have a guest panelist for our next podcast. And the topic will be relationships and the titles that bind us. And that's going to be a hell of a discussion, because we talked a little bit about relationships today. We're going to get deep in relationships and the titles that bind us together, and that, make us do what we do and make us feel like we have to be with somebody or don't have to be with somebody. So come back here next week, 7 o'clock. I will do my best to be on time, honey. But like I said, the social media thing is a struggle. But I'll do my best to have everything out for you guys to get the content and be able to be blessed by it. So in the meantime, y'all take care of yourself, take care of others. Don't settle, and be great. You guys have a great rest of your daytime. If you're watching this, the nighttime. If you're watching this, afternoon. If you're watching this, whenever you're watching it, be great. And thank you. Comedian Visionary Speaks. Bye.